Back. This is going to be a part 2 for the basics in the Magicavoxels series. So I've got a brand new project here. I've switched over to my preferred color palette number 1. Okay, so a couple things that I find helpful when I'm working in Magicavoxels is down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see some different options. These are display options, and if you mouse over the different words, they'll tell you what they are. And they tell you down here in the bottom center. Anything in Magicavoxels, when you mouse over it, it will tell you down here at the bottom what it is that you have. So I'm going to turn on edge mode, and you can see it does the outer edges. And then I also like to have grid mode on. Grid mode is incredibly helpful, so you can see all the individual voxels. So now if I go here to erase, and I start pulling these out, you can start to see, and it allows you to be incredibly accurate. So if you want to really make sure that things are nice and even, you know exactly where to start, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out, and you don't have to do as much undoing and things like that. So, and you can see the edges there, it does all the major edges. I'll turn edge off. You get a little bit of a cleaner look, but it depends. It just pops it out a little more. The third feature that I sometimes like is this one here. It says SW, and that is for shadows. And you can see that's kind of cool. It adds in the shadows right there. So again, if I'm now erasing, you can see the shadows are changing in real time, which is very neat. And I can go ahead and clear that out all the way through. Some people don't like the shadows because it starts to block things as you're modeling. So again, you just come over here and click on it and turn it on and off. Nice and easy. Okay, I'm going to press clear. The next thing I want to show you is the size of the world. And this is your world right here. So the way you change it is with these 3 numbers up here. The first number represents the x-axis, then the y-axis, and then the z-axis. And if you forget your x, y, and z, remember you can come down here and you can look at this little viewing cube down here, and you can right mouse click, and you can see the 3 colors. Red axis is always the x-axis, green is the y-axis, and z is always the blue axis. Okay, so right now you always start off with a 40, 40, 40, and they can all be the same, but they can also be different. So for instance, if I change the first number to 256 and press return, you'll see that I have a world that is 256 voxels going across horizontally on the x-axis, 40 deep and 40 high. I can go ahead and change the depth. Instead of 40, maybe I'll make it 80. Whoops, and you can see because I didn't put a space in there, it did that. So I'm just going to highlight it all. I'm going to type in 256 space 80 space 80, or sorry, 40. There we go. Sometimes it's just easier to type in all 3. Okay, so now you can see that I've got a deeper world, but it's just as high. So this would be really cool because what I could do now is if I wanted to do like an entire level of a 3D game, like a platformer, like Mario or something like that, I could start over here on the left and I could just build it over here to the right. And then I could bring this into my 3D game engine like Blender or Unity or something like that. So that would be really cool. If you look at some of these examples over here, for instance, if I choose the night, and I'll say no, I don't want to save, you'll see that the voxels look really big, and it's not that they're big, it's just that the world is really small. You'll notice that their world is basically 20. Same thing with this character, it's mostly 20. Castle is all 20. So I do recommend when you're starting out new, start off small so you don't have as much of a space to fill. So if I come up here to the top right, click on the little single paper icon. I'll choose clear. Now, if I want all three numbers to be the same, you can just highlight them, type in one number, press return, and all three will be the same. So there's my 20 by 20 by 20, and this is good for a starter character or a small item, a weapon, or something like that. Okay, so now that I have a nice small world, I want to show you a feature that can be really helpful, and this is a mirror feature. So I'm going to go ahead and go to attach. I'm going to go to box mode, and I'm going to make just some legs for a basic character. I'm going to choose a brown for the shoes. Okay, so the mirror tools are right here. They're kind of dark gray, and it's this icon right here of these two little triangles with a line in between. So you can mirror on all three axes, X, Y, and Z. And you can mirror on all three axes at the time, or you can turn them on and off. So I'm going to turn them all on at once, and I want you to see what happens. So as I'm drawing here, you can see that I'm mirroring, again, on the x-axis. Here's the mirror over here. On the y-axis, because I'm getting 4 down here, and on the z-axis, because I'm getting them up top when I'm modeling them down below. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to turn off Z and Y. X-axis is most common because then you're mirroring on the other side. So now, if I draw in some shoes, and I'll go to the face brush and make them a little taller, you'll see that I only have to model half of what I want to do, and then the rest gets done for me. So the mirror tool can be really helpful. Okay, so now if I wanted to go and model some legs, and because I have the grid feature turned on, I can try to be as precise as possible. Now I'll go to face brush, make those legs come up a little bit. So this can be pretty handy. Now if I want to do maybe some pants, go up, and then when you come to the center of the mirror, you'll see that they do join, so that can be really, really helpful. Okay, so I got the basics of some really simple character stuff here. All right, the next thing I want to show you is just moving around, navigating in 3D. This viewing cube down here can be really helpful, and it's great. You want to constantly change your view just to really help you out. But if I want to view from the front view, I can just left mouse click the front face here, and you'll see that it now shows me the front view. But I'm still in perspective mode, which again is really helpful. If I want to view from the top view, I just rotate my view, find the top view, and left mouse click, and I'm instantly looking down. But in addition to this, sometimes it's more helpful to turn off perspective. And so the way you do that is down here, you'll see where it says pers, that's perspective. And then the one I want to show you is orth, and that's short for orthogonal. And orthogonal just means no perspective, 2D. So here we are looking top down with no perspective. I'm going to switch it to the front view in orthogonal, and you'll see how this can be really helpful because now I'm just working flat 2D. So if I go here to attach and I go here to box mode, I'm going to turn off the mirror feature. I'm going to change my color. So when I'm in the two-dimensional view here, this is going to be really handy. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw in. Okay, so that looks like I've got the beginning of a shirt here. But if I hold down my right mouse button and rotate my view, you'll see that it drew it on the back wall. There is a feature, and I'll try to figure it out for the next video. There is a feature that I believe doesn't automatically attach it to the back wall. But as you can see, there it is right there. So I'm going to turn on perspective again. So again, drawing from the front view, drawing from a two-dimensional view can be really helpful. Sometimes though, you can do this and you can say, it's not worth it because it put it in the wrong spot. But again, just remember that you can put things in a two-dimensional view, and sometimes that can really help. So the very last thing I want to show you is how to do some basic selections and then move what you have selected. So right now I want to basically get this back over here. So what you can do is underneath the paint function is going to be this middle button right here, and this is what yours is going to look like. So if you click on it, you now have what's called the Marquee Tool, and it's basically a selection tool. You have three different ways of selecting. So the first way is where you click and drag, and whatever is inside the box is what's going to get selected. Now it's really tough to see. It's kind of white. It's a little tough to see because it's yellow here. Let me change my color. Okay, so now that I have a darker color, it's easier for you to see. Okay, so let me go back to the selection tool, the Marquee tool, and whatever I go around will now be selected, and you can see it real easily in there. And you can left mouse click and get your angle just right and get them all, and that's fine. To deselect, you just click in an open spot. Okay, the next way to select, again, you have the selection tool activated. Come down here, the brush tool. This one is nice because you just click and drag, and whatever you go over will now be selected. And so that's real easy there. And the last way of selecting is this kind of box select. So you click on the little box, you click and drag out, and you can see that it goes ahead and grabs it. You then get these little axes handles, and if you click and drag it, you're not going to move the content, you're going to move the selection box, just so you can really be pretty precise in where you put it. And there you go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just go back here. Okay, so once you have your content selected, now how do I get it over here where I want to place it? So what you do is next to the selection tool right here, if you click on this tool to the left of it, this is called the transform tool. And then if you look down here, you'll see that you have 4 different transform tools. The first one is move, the next one is scale. And again, remember that whatever you mouse over, down here at the bottom center, it will tell you what tool you're on, just so you can really learn a lot faster. So this is move, scale, something called wrap or crop. I don't use that very often. And this is rotate. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm on move. And with this, you can actually just left click and drag out. But when I click and drag, I can't move it away from the wall. I can only move it horizontally. I'm going to undo. If I click and drag, I can move it upward. That's great, but it still isn't working. Okay, and when I did undo, it deselected it, so that's kind of a bummer, but there we go. All right. Okay, so with this selected, with the move tool, what I was hoping to get, or should be able to get, is the axes arrows coming out of it, so that I can move it out here onto the pants. If I change tools from the move tool to the scale tool, this is exactly what I wanted. So I could just go like this and drag it on out. I'm not sure why the move tool doesn't have that feature turned on, so maybe I'm just missing something. But the scale tool gives that to me. Now you have to be careful with the scale tool, because the scale tool, if you click and drag it on some of the axes, you might actually squish or scale your object. So just be real careful with that. And I'll be honest with you, to select this piece and move it out here, that took enough time that I could have just recreated it over here. It would have been easier to do it that way. So again, whenever you're modeling, just think about what it is that you're doing and see if there's an easier way. Okay, I'm going to go back here to attach and whoops. I'm going to go back here to the selection tool, click in an open spot, that way it deselects it. Now I can go to attach face mode, and I can go ahead and give him the rest of his shirt. Okay, so that's going to be it for the basics part 2. I will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.